What American Idol singer is running for Congress? And why are the rules just a little bit different for celebrities? This is the voice of resistance.
Standing for truth in the four corners of America. Fighting for justice on the frontiers of the culture wars. And turning resistance into an art form. Randall Terry.
I want to show you some clips from one of the best political campaign videos that I have seen in a long time. Well, just go ahead, play the first clip.
I was 1 year old, and my mother knocked on that door with only a diaper bag, the clothes on our backs, and me in her arms. She needed a place to stay where she could escape from my father and start a new life. And she found that place here, in the home of a friend. For 8 months, we stayed in this living room and slept on a mattress on the floor. A tarp hung around the bed for privacy. I'm Clay Aiken, and I don't remember that time. Mom thinks that's for the best. My father could be a violent man who would get drunk and angry, and he'd decide that Mom was the reason for the pain in his life. I saw later, when I was older, the pictures of her bruised face and blackened eyes in police photographs. In some ways, this is where my life really began, on the floor of a living room in a small North Carolina home, where my mother and I only had each other. And she protected me, not just from my father, but from as many harsh realities as she could. And more often than not, she'd distract me with music.
All right, you recognize the face if you ever watched American Idol, Clay Aiken. And when I heard that part of his story, I admit it, I'm an emotional, I'm a blubberer. That's what Winston Churchill said about himself. He was a blubberer. I started to cry. I was just so moved. I was like, wow. And I thought, all right, well, this is a 4-minute long video. Where is he going with this? But he drew in the viewer. All right, so then he jumps forward to the problems that we're facing.
For most Americans, there are no golden tickets, at least not like the kind you see on TV. More families are struggling today than at any time in our history, and here in North Carolina, we've suffered more than our share of pain. The years I spent as a special education teacher for students with autism was my first window into the difference that a person can make in someone's life. Then it was the years I spent with UNICEF, traveling to places of heartbreak like the war zones of Afghanistan and Somalia, where families had been torn apart and hope was sometimes hard to find. I'm a Democrat, but it was when I was appointed by President Bush to serve on a special presidential commission to address the educational challenges of children with special needs. That was when I first realized that our problems won't be solved by only one party or the other.
Again, that was good. Saying that there is no golden ticket, and then talking about the need for the parties to work together. A lot of us are just absolutely fed up with partisan gridlock, and he's touching a nerve there. And then he got to the red meat of the basis of his campaign.
And the district where I'm running is represented by a congresswoman who I believe went to Washington with good intentions. I'd like to think that people don't go there with anything else. But even though she knew that voting for massive cuts to the military was bad for our country and for our district, she voted for them anyway, 10 times, after her party leaders told her to. And when her party leaders told her to vote for the government shutdown, she did, 21 times, even though she said herself it would be a disaster for the economy. And then she complained that she needed her paycheck. These votes hurt North Carolina. They hurt our military readiness, and they led to thousands of civilians at Fort Bragg being furloughed. Cuts to child care for 5,000 children who live on base. Cuts to medical and dental clinics, and to counseling and survivor outreach for families of fallen warriors. Even free phone calls so families could call soldiers serving in Afghanistan were cut back. This is what's wrong with Washington.
Well, there's a lot of people in the military and in the pseudo-military world, civilians who get their paycheck based upon government military contracts, that are truly fed up with how Congress is treating our military. I have an acquaintance who has announced that he's going to run for Congress in a Republican primary, specifically because of what the Republican House is trying to do to cut military retirement pay. And he's got a Purple Heart, and he's livid. He's 69 years old. He's livid with his Republican incumbent who is doing what the party leaders have to say. So, Clay Aiken, American Idol singer, somebody who is beloved by, well, he sold 6 million records. There's just a small problem that he's going to have politically. In case you didn't know, I'll play a clip from an interview that he did with Diane Sawyer.
What you doing tonight?
But his story became a triumph. He sold 6 million albums and has a rapt, middle-aged female following.
It's to see you, Daddy.
But he says a little boy who knows nothing yet about a judgmental world is the reason he came to talk to us. He began by telling me about the mother of the baby, James Foster, a music producer and longtime friend.
She was ending a relationship, a marriage that she had been in for over 20 years. She had always wanted kids. I've always wanted kids. Being a gay man, it wasn't something for me that was going to be an option any other way.
So, on a political level, that represents a pretty significant problem because he's running in North Carolina. The incumbent, Renee Elmers, has already issued a press release saying that his behavior, his ethics, resemble more of somebody from San Francisco than from North Carolina. North Carolina is part of the Bible Belt. North Carolina is devoutly religious. North Carolina voted to ban homosexual marriage. And then we have this great singer, this 35-year-old man who says, I'm gay and I have a son and I want him to learn to tolerate everything and I want to represent you. I'm going to take a break. When we come back, we'll look at some of the uphill climb he might have. My wife and I, for 5 years, have been grinding our own wheat and baking our own bread from scratch. Within 2 hours, you can have fresh wheat in your hand and then piping hot bread come out of the oven. The most nutritious and delicious bread you will ever have. And we do it for under $1 a loaf. Call Paula's Bread and find out about this grain mill and the mixer and how it can save you money and change your life. It is a fine thing to be honest, but it is also very important to be right. Sir Winston Churchill. As we look at Clay Aiken's run for Congress, I want to weave that together with the sad heroin overdose of Philip Seymore Hoffman, the actor who has starred in many really good films, funny films. He was a good actor. Young man, only 46 years old, found, as you may have heard, dead in his bathroom with the needle in his arm. And I want you to at least ponder the fact that the gods that walk among us are celebrities, mostly originating from Hollywood, but also in the sports world. That the gods that walk among us, and by the way, I say that with a little g, I'm meaning it to be a bit of a slight. They get to play by different rules. They just do. And they become the tail that wags the dog. By that, what I mean, I'll come back to Clay in a minute. If you are a news watcher, you will have heard more about heroin and the problem with fentanyl, which is being mixed in by certain heroin dealers to heroin. This other drug has reportedly caused a lot of deaths in Pennsylvania and, if my memory is correct, in Chicago. The point is, there are sad and tragic addictions and deaths due to heroin or other illegal substances that are happening all over the country. But suddenly it's big news because why? Well, one of the gods, one of our celebrities, one of the ringmasters in our circuses has fallen due to this drug. And so his death, and may God rest his soul, may God have mercy on him, and may God comfort his family. How horrible, what a horrible, tragic loss. His death becomes the tail that wags the dog, and now suddenly all the press is rushing headlong to cover heroin. Why? Because the rules are different. Because we're a country that is addicted to and driven by circuses, bread and circuses. And as long as there's enough bread, all right, as long as people can buy their bag of Doritos, or they can go to McDonald's dollar menu, or they can use their food stamps to go and buy steak and lobster, or whatever it is that's going on, as long as the bread is on the table, it's all about the circuses. And as I said, the rules are different for them. They're treated differently. So now you have Clay Aiken, who did a great job as a kid on American Idol, who delivered a very moving campaign video. Go to his website and watch it, see the whole thing for yourself. It's almost 5 minutes long. He does it in one take, by the way. And so is one television person to another. I can tell you that's really difficult to do something that was that articulate and that was that well lit and that was that emotive in one take. But he did it. So the rules are different for him. He's going to get all this attention because he's a celebrity, and also now because he is a gay father who has adopted a child. There's going to be people who will rush to support him, and there's going to be people who would like to hold his politics and his ethics regarding human sexuality and marriage. There's going to be people who want to throttle him, but they're going to step back. They're going to hold back just a little bit. At least at the beginning they will. Why? Because the rules are different. Because he's a celebrity. Because he sings. And my point in all of this is very simple. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. Don't drink the Kool-Aid. If someone is a good singer, if someone is a good actor, if someone is good in sports, it doesn't mean that their ethics and their policies are what we want for our country. It doesn't mean that they are who we want in political office. I'm sorry for the abuse that he endured as a child. I'm sure that had some impact on him that may be even playing out right now. But the simple matter is, do we want people leading our government who are in open defiance of the norms, of the standards that God has given us since the dawn of time? I feel bad for him. I feel even worse for that little boy that he's raising. And I'm alarmed for our country. And I'm doubly alarmed that the celebrities, the ringmasters of our circuses, get to play by different rules. I don't want to play by their rules. This is the voice of resistance. Do you want to have knowledge, wisdom, discernment? If so, you have to read good books on theology, history, books that look at the lives of great men and women. So to help you to become a more effective Christian, a better witness for truth, somebody who can engage in productive conversation that exhorts and edifies those that you speak with, we're going to do something crazy. We're offering you these 7 books for a gift of any size. You just pay for the shipping and handling, and then give whatever gift that you can, and we will send them to you. But just to make it a little bit more crazy, I will send you a second copy of my 3 books, autographed. You can give them as a gift to your pastor or to a family member and help extend truth and justice in the world. This is while supplies last. James Madison said, there is no maxim, in my opinion, which is more liable to be misapplied and which therefore needs more elucidation than the current, that the interest of the majority is the political standard of right and wrong. You may have read a book, and if not, I suggest you read it, called The Hiding Place. The Hiding Place was written by Corrie ten Boom. She lived in Holland during the Nazi occupation, and her family helped hide Jews from the Nazis. She was arrested, and as was her sister, and they ended up in a concentration camp where her sister died and she survived. In her book, she talks about the times of prayer that the Christians had in the concentration camp, and how that at that time, the denominational differences that separated them on the outside, before the war particularly, that they didn't seem that important on the inside. Now, I want you to know that I am a Christian. I take theology very seriously. I have taken the study of different denominations and their doctrines very seriously for my entire adult life. And I think it's important. I mean, after all, our relationship with God is what we should be striving for here, and so that we can go into eternity to be with Him. So it's a big deal, all right? However, if you look at, say, a passage like Matthew chapter 25, where Christ talks about the separation of the sheep and the goats, the great judgment, He bases the judgment at that time on works of mercy. I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was sick and you visited me, etc. And it got me to thinking that I wanted to just exhort you for a second. We're watching our country die, all right? You don't have to be a prophet to see that we are in deep trouble, and that the world that we are delivering to our children and to our grandchildren is a mess, ethically a mess. How did we get here? How did we get here? And I would submit to you that one of the reasons we are at this place is because of the belligerence and at times the arrogance of various denominational strains that want to separate themselves from people of other Christian backgrounds and Christian faiths and put a higher priority on doctrinal differences than they do on life and death issues. Now, I want you to hear what I'm telling you, all right? If your child was going to drown, was in the middle of drowning, and you needed someone else to help rescue your child, would you grill them about their theology? Would you say, well, my pastor says we're not allowed to hang out with you? No, you wouldn't, because it's life and death. We acknowledge from our gut that there is a hierarchy of what matters in this world. Life and death are one of them. And when you look at, for example, the killing of children in America and the blood that is crying out from the ground, it puts us in great danger. When you look at where we are going as a nation, with the shedding of innocent blood, with the demise of the family, with the enslavement to debt, now more than ever before, we need to be willing to work side by side with people of different denominations so that we can bring this country back. Because if we don't, what's the option? What's the option? I mean, look at the trajectory we're on. There are things about various denominations that make me nuts. But what makes me afraid is the future that my sons are going to inherit because of our neglect, because of our failure to have unity in battle. And the unity that we need right now is not going to be one that revolves around every jot and tittle of our different doctrinal differences from our denominations, but it can be that Jesus is Lord, the Ten Commandments are from God, human life must be protected, enslaving our children to debt and to create the socialist plantation is an affront to heaven and earth, that marriages between people of opposite genders, that we have the right to protect ourselves. All right, there are just simple things that we can agree on that are all anchored in our several Christian faiths. And then we set ourselves free from the addiction to bread and circuses, and we put the priorities that God has established as our priorities, and we work together and we fight side by side. Because if we don't, we might end up in a concentration camp like Corrie ten Boom did, and then suddenly our denominational differences won't mean so much to us, and we'll look around and say, why didn't we work together when we had a chance to fight and to win?
Hey, everyone's been asking me, when's Unstoppable coming out on DVD? Well, it's here. And I have created my own deluxe signature version of Unstoppable that contains not only the movie, but over 5 hours of additional curriculum and study guides for your family. It's perfect for your homeschool, educational facility, small group Bible study, and family devotions. This box set also includes extended scenes, new music videos, the inside scoop on the whole Facebook controversy, and my personal perspective on how to be a Christian filmmaker in Hollywood without losing your soul. So what are you waiting for? I made this special version with my family in mind, and I know your family will be blessed by it too. Unstoppable 2.0 Deluxe Signature Version, available at kurtcameron.com. I can't wait for you to experience what's inside.
We began this episode looking at Clay Aiken and his run for Congress, and in one of the clips we showed, he talked about wanting to make a difference, right? Wanting to make a difference. A lot of people get into the political arena or into the culture wars, as they have been called, because they want to make a difference. That's a good thing. But the question is, what difference? Where are you taking us? And I'm not sure that I want to follow, no, strike that. I am certain that I do not want to follow Clay Aiken into the difference that he wants to make. So, if you sit there, and I sit here, and we just wring our hands, what does that do? It might give us an ulcer, might make us sleep fitfully. But what about the option of becoming a warrior yourself? What about the option of jumping into the fray at whatever level you can? And there are a lot of levels, friend. We are doing this show because we want Christian apologetics applied to cultural and political issues at home and abroad. It's just that simple. But right now, my wife has been saying to me, Randall, there's not even an army to lead. When I led Operation Rescue, we had literally tens of thousands of people in the streets standing for what was true and just, standing for life. Now, they're gone. They're just bread and circuses. We've just been taken off the playing field. We need a new army. You say, well, Randall, I'm interested, but I don't know what to do. That's why we have the website. Go to our website and begin to take advantage of the materials there. Most of the stuff is free, literally free, because we're in such a crisis as a country. What good is it if I sell a few books and sell them for $20 and the nation perishes? I mean, it's great, I get a few bucks. No, this isn't about money. This isn't about bread and circuses. This is about time and eternity, about what our children will face. And I'm inviting you to go to the online university, learn how to be a leader, learn how to be a warrior, so you can look your children and your grandchildren in the face and say, I did everything that I could possibly do for you.